Toremann is like the friendly uncle of the Eastern family. They're very friendly and easygoing, but they won't hesitate to defend their family. Hey guys, welcome back to Nations of Minecraft. So today we're doing Toremann, or Toramachi as they call it themselves. Now, most of their existence is just being in the shadow of their neighbor and best friend Jernaya, but they still have a very interesting culture and history, so let's check it out. So Toremann is located here in the east, and it's one of the most important eastern countries. So Toremann is made up of four very distinct regions with different backgrounds, but they all came together to form Toremann, as we're going to talk about in the history section. So first there's the river coast. These are the trading people because they're right on the Distan River, and a lot of their industry is around bringing ores from the countryside to the river to sell to other countries. Next, there's the countryside itself, which does the most mining and resource extraction overall. Then there's the woodland, which does do a little bit of lumber, and they don't trade that much with the rest of the country, but they do some secret trades with Thero. And then there's Jernaya. Now, Jernaya is this country, and the capital of the city of Jernaya is here, but there's still some spillover suburbs of the city that is on the other side of the river in Toremann. So, yeah, there's this very urban metropolitan area, and this is like the business region of the country. So these four regions used to have nothing to do with each other until they were all unified as part of one country, and they all kind of adopted one shared identity. So this is a biome map. You can see the biomes kind of correspond to the regions. So there's a lot of dead fields in the countryside, there's some shrub in the south, and there's a lot of bamboo in Toremann. So, to show you the temperature map of Toremann, this time I'm going to be doing it a different way, and I regret not doing it this way before, because this is like the second to last episode. This is a temperature map of the whole world, and now we're just going to zoom in on Toremann and see exactly what it's like for them specifically. So yeah, as you can see, Toremann has a pretty moderate temperature, a little bit warm in the south, a little bit cooler in the north along the Navigat River, but yeah, overall, pretty moderate. And this is a humidity map, and Toremann is actually quite dry, except for some parts around the Distan River. Toremann is overall a dry country. Yeah, man, I wish I'd done that before. So, this is a language map of Toremann. They do have a unified language, Toramachi, even though each kind of town or region has its own dialect, but everyone speaks two languages, their regional dialect and Toramachi, because Toramachi is like a lingua franca. But actually, no, most people speak three languages, because the country also speaks Distant, which is a lingua franca that unites basically all these countries, because of the ancient Distant Empire, and they just all still speak Distant to communicate with each other. So now let's get into the history. As I talked about before, pretty recently, there was no Toramachi identity. In ancient times, they were the land that makes up Toremann now were these different tribes that really didn't like each other. And then during the Green Plateau, Toremann was not its own thing. It was just part of the province Naviket with Jernaya. It was just literally considered the same exact thing as Jernaya. And then during the Naviket Empire, it was just part of the Naviket Empire, didn't have its own distinct identity until the Kingdom of Ravinia revolted and declared independence. They wanted to become their own kingdom. But the Naviket Empire would not recognize their sovereignty, even though they kind of won a war of independence. So they pushed farther into the Naviket Empire's territory to try and compel them to surrender and recognize their independence. Now, ordinarily, the Naviket Empire had a very strong military, but during this period of time, the government was very weak and chaotic. There was a lot of infighting among politicians, and also infighting among generals. These were the two top generals, Ashvinrov and Azrol, and they hated each other, and they were too busy arguing to do much about Ravinia invading the Naviket Empire. So they took over this part. And the Ravinia said to the Naviket Empire, "We'll give you this back if you just let us become independent." And there was nothing they could do. So they agreed. They were just like, fine. The kingdom of Ravinia became independent, and then they sent that one general, Azrol, to the territory to retake it. He went to the town of Toremann, but then he saw that Ashvinrov was rising in power. Ashvinrov was his rival general, and he knew that Ashvanroth might even become emperor. So he didn't want to go back to the empire. So he said, you know what? Maybe I'll just keep this territory. So instead of taking the territory back for the empire, he literally just made his own country because he had his army with him, and he named the country Toremann because his base was in the town of Toremann, which is somewhere around here in the center. So yeah, now Toremann was its own country, and even though there were four distinct regions, they were all united under the rule of Azrol, and he ruled with the sword. He was a dictator because he could be, since he had his military. And Ashvanroth ended up becoming leader not of the Navika Empire, because the Navika Empire fell, but of the city-state of Jernaya. And he was very, very mad at Azrol for ruining the whole empire. He blamed Azrol for the downfall of the empire, so he invaded Toremann, and they had a brief war, nobody won. But eventually, the people of Jernaya got rid of Ashvanroth, and they established sort of a democracy. So then the people of Toremann started to get mad at Azrol, and they wanted reforms. They asked if they could have reforms, and Azrol was like, no. So they all banded together. All these different cultures banded together as one identity to get rid of Azrol. And then, because of circumstances, they had to work together, and that's how they formed the Toremann identity. And that's how the Toremann spirit of friendliness came to be, because even though all these different peoples historically hated each other, they kind of had to be friendly with each other. And then, seeing all of this, Jernaya asked if they could be friends again, and Toremann agreed. So, Toremann, Jernaya, and Regia all banded together to form the Navikeshan Confederation, which wasn't exactly a remake of the Navika Empire, but they established the same, sort of trade agreements they had under the Navika Empire, and all of their prosperities increased. So yeah. Some top notable sites you might want to see if you visit Toremann include the city of Toremann, which is the capital, even though it's not particularly a big city. That's just where Azrol made his base, and it stayed the capital. There's Lonia National Park, which the Lonian tribes were ancient tribes that used to live here, the ones that used to hate each other and all. There are a lot of elaborate train systems in Toremann left over from the Navikan Empire. There's the Azuri village. Azuriism is a very rare religion that's a religion from this Minecraft world, and it's one of the few places it's practiced is in Toremann. So this is their symbol, the sun, because they only worship Apollo. And there's the Ravinian embassy. So when Ravinia did invade this territory, they established the Ravinian embassy, which was this building. And even though, Ravinia doesn't exist anymore, it broke up into other countries, this embassy still functions, so anyone from any of the three former Ravinian countries, Genesis, Thero, or Minlia, could go here, and it still functions as the embassy. And there's also the Bambo National Park next to this train, pretty cool place. Alright, so now let's talk about how they get along with other countries. So, of course, Jernaya is their best friend, will always be, even though they had a little trouble, but they both got rid of their dictators, and they sort of bonded over that. So they are best friends for life. Toremann is also great friends with everyone else in the Navikeshan Confederation, especially because they're now all at war with Claytonia. And when Claytonia now is invading Jernaya, all of them are rushed in to help. So Toremann knows they're kind of supposed to hate Thero, because Navika and especially Jernaya has a lot of rivalry with Thero and Ravinia, and also Thero used to be Ravinia, which they were the ones who invaded Toremann, but they still secretly have a small secret love affair for Thero, because they know without Thero, or rather Ravinia, same thing, Toremann kind of wouldn't exist. But the love affair is secret and sort of kept under wraps, and it's only really the western parts of Toremann that like Thero and secretly trade with them. Next, when it comes to Manplatin, it's kind of the opposite. Remember, for Thero, they knew they were supposed to hate them, but they secretly liked them. Manplatin, they know they're supposed to like Manplatin, because they do a lot of business with Manplatin, and they also really want Manplatin to join them in the war against Claytonia, but they don't like Manplatin, especially because of how much Manplatin always shows off their wealth. So they don't like Manplatin, but they feel like they have to be nice and pretend to it. But I tried to make this smile look like he's stung by a wasp, trying to pretend to, be happy and like Manplatin. Anyway. So, in conclusion, Toremann is a good country that was born out of hard circumstances. Stay tuned. My country, the one I'm in right now, Zavisio, is coming up next.